All right,
Hey,
brother. I see you now.
hey, I'm having a Teddy Pendergrass.
I can see you
I,
now, bro. I
I,
appreciate you for trying and trying and trying. If at first you don't succeed, and
yeah,
so we here now. It's 8:30, basically. But we're gonna go, for the 60 minutes if you're down for it. If you have to
yeah,
jump off, please do so. But I'm excited to see your face, and this is a promising. So how I started this last the times before, as we were talking about the festival and how you and your team jumped in from going to Pod and Live meetup with which is Queen and Tea with Queen and Jay's largest Black podcast event in New York City and in the world basically. And so you guys seeing a flyer on the table, because I know I was tossing them everywhere and saying, you know what, this is something that we want to be get behind and work with. And so we did touch on it a little bit, why you guys decided to get involved, but this is going to be a new recording. So I wanted you to share your thoughts on that again, and just what made you guys look at the flyer and say, we want to get involved with this.
yeah. For those who were here before, hello to new people. Yeah. So we saw the flyer. Mickey, my partner, she kind of kicked me in my ass. She was like, reply. She was like,
Nice.
push it out there, put the feelers out there. So I said, cool. So, I checked out the website, I checked out what it was about, what you were trying to pull off and everything like that. And what, I saw the guests and everything. I was like, oh, this is dope. I gotta be on this,
Mm-hmm.
And, it's like, we replied, very exciting for us. And we had just bought a bunch of equipment and we wanted to push out what we were hoping to be like a high quality video of like
Mm-hmm.
angles, very broadcast light and everything like that. So I had to like assemble a team and everything, and like, let's just get it out there, let's give it a try, because you don't really know until you try, So it's like, and I mean, you worked it out as well on your end, because I know we had to move spots and everything, and we still met great people, so that was super dope.
Yeah.
um, it was just, and for us, it was a great learning curve. It was a great kind of like an A/B test, if you will, if you're in software
Mm-hmm.
engineering.
Yeah.
It was like, it was a way for like, okay, we see what we did wrong, let's fix it and tighten it up for the next one,
Mm-hmm.
and that way we can have a better product the next time around.
Yeah.
And just troubleshooting on this fly, it was a really fun time. And on top of that too, the festival was dope because multi-day stuff, with people coming out every single day,
Mm-hmm.
just filling up the space. And it was just awesome to see so many Black creatives just be in one space,
Mm-hmm.
and having candid discussions about podcasting or just creating
Yeah.
content, So,
Yeah.
and and that's something we hoped it would be, and it was, and it is, and it's like, boom, we were a part of that. It's kind of
Yeah.
like history in the making, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Absolutely. It was definitely history in the making as the first Black podcast festival in New York City. And you guys were an integral part of that. And to the point where, I mentioned earlier where I didn't want to do the festival ever again without you guys. Obviously, COVID has created a lot of things in which we have to adjust. But it just goes to show, and I thank you to Mickey, who said to you, reach out, because here I am sitting here with a live stream promise for the festival and no live stream. No secure live stream yet, and not and having so many pieces to concern myself with, worry about. We ended up moving moving the venue a month to the day before the festival actually happened. So there were so many moving pieces, so many things to be stressed out about, and just receiving your email was like the sky opening up for me, sunshine coming in. And so why it's so important for us to continue to show up for ourselves and for each other, because someone is somewhere is almost always waiting for that moment for someone to say, can I assist you? Can I help you? And it's like, hell yeah, you can, you can help me. Hell yeah, you can help me. So I really appreciate it. You guys got so much love from me, and did such a great job. And I'm looking forward to doing more with you guys as we expand and as you guys expand. And so, you know, you had mentioned before we got cut off about your team and the fact that this team that you had was such, they were awesome to work with. They were so professional. Everybody had their role and responsibilities, and they worked it. You know, even when there was a, you know, crises, you know, inside of your own, you know, your own team member, losing a loved one, left and came right back. You know, and it was such a, it was just like, what's going on here? Who are these people who are so dedicated and committed to this festival that they are providing this service and all of their things in kind, you know? And it just goes to show, you know, who you guys are and the integrity that you bring to the space, right? And so speaking of that, understanding a lot of us who are doing big things, this aspect of a team is so necessary, right? And so my question was, when did you decide that it's like, I need a team for the things that I'm up to, the vision that I have for Gifted Sounds? And how did you get these people? Are they friends, or did you recruit people, you know, from the world? How did you create this team that you have?
Some of them are hosts on my network. They're like podcast hosts, but they're also creatives in that sense. So I pulled from their expertise as well, and other people who were like, they kind of work in that industry already, like broadcast industry,
Mm-hmm.
through other folks that I met. So, you know, it was just an ask and to see who would, you know, come on board.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are friends, of course. And Mickey is my partner, also my life partner. So, you know, so it's kind of like she had no choice. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. Right.
But it, you know, and these are people who, everyone that was there have expressed interest in the festival, either interest in the festival or interest in doing that type of work. So I reached out. I said, as soon as I hear something or I'm doing something, you'll be the first to know. So, you know, and they were, free at the time, and I was like, great, let's do it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and they're able to come every day, and I was like, very, very fortunate in that
Yeah.
sense.
Absolutely. We all were very fortunate, man. I appreciate that. So, tell us about your background and your expertise in audio entertainment and production.
So I've been podcasting now for over 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Started out with a small show called Titty Talk Show. Yeah,
Nice.
if you want,
Nice.
it's about, like, you know, about sex, sexually, you know, that sort of the industry and everything's been funny and whatnot. So it's kind of like I met some folks through this Facebook group I was in, and, you know, I've always had this thing for multimedia production and creation around that. So that's when I kind of got started in planning the show, putting together content, and just being live streaming and put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
From there, I didn't quite consider that first show a podcast because we weren't really on the directories or anything like that. So from there, a buddy, one of my friends, put me in touch with his friend, and then created a podcast. It was a video gaming podcast that was more journalistic in nature, and that afforded me into more connections to different people who were behind the scenes creating networks and how to get into certain conventions or whatever the case may be, just doing like that sort of thing. So from there, I kind of like learned from a lot of those people, asked a lot of questions, and then did a
That's
whole
necessary.
did a whole
Yeah.
lot of trial and error,
Mm-hmm.
where I came to the realization where it's like, I thought I was good enough with my skill when it comes to audio editing. That's one, audio editing, audio engineering, and video editing, post-production, pre-production, that whole thing. It's like, it'd be great if I can apply this to people of color.
Yeah.
And, at the time, there were people of color doing what I'm doing, but it was more for somebody else and not for themselves. But I wanted it to be beneficial to those folks, and to my people and whatnot, to our people. And I decided to just kind of like push my way in, not push my way, but kind of like put my skills into that. And I wanted everybody to look and sound as best as I can possibly make it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like and it's because every single project I take on, even now, pushes my skills further and further along.
Word.
And and it's like I'm still learning because all the tools and everything that I use now, it's always been updated. There's always something new.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a new 12K camera, whatever. But that's how I came to just kind of gather all these skills and stuff over the past 8 years.
Okay.
Learning from building my own computer to fit the needs that I needed to be. Instead
Mm-hmm.
of like spending 20 grand on a Mac, but I
Right.
was
Right.
spend less than half that and build something that can, build a tool that I needed to make it work.
Right.
And I, like I said, I asked a lot of questions, read a lot of books, read a lot of blogs out there, trying to figure out, I studied the people who are at the top of their game,
Mm-hmm.
and I looked at what they were using. I was more interested not with their content, but how they're getting their content out. Like, how are you everywhere? Why does your audio sound that way? Why does it look that way? What are you using to get it that way? So those are the questions I like to ask when I see anyone. And it's not, I don't look at anybody as competition. It's just more like, okay, I can do that. Let me bring it over here too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it definitely, what you're saying is you anything that someone else can do, if you have the interest and you can have the, the dedication and effort to put into it, it's possibility, right? It becomes your own possibility. So that's what I hear you saying. Like, if it's possible for them, it's possible for me and us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important. That's always important for us to recognize, especially in this game of podcasting. You've been in for 8 years. A lot of folks are new to the game and or established like you. But this podcasting industry is ever evolving, right? And so it's so important to keep up with what's happening in order to stay relevant. Not only to stay relevant, but in order to feel competence builds confidence, right? Anything what you're talking about and what you're doing is going to create that confidence for you to be able to do it and keep doing it, right? And so I respect that aspect of you because there's not a lot of people have a whole in-house services that Gifted Sounds has.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so how did Gifted Sounds become a company? And how do you kind of compile these services together to provide this to podcast creators?
It was actually born out of another company that I had with
Mm-hmm.
two buddies of mine. It was called Gifted Media Productions. But each one of us we all work in production, work in creativity, that sort of thing, in our real jobs, and as you want to quote unquote real jobs. But because of the schedules with all of us, and that didn't quite work out. So it's like I given that I was so in podcasting for so long, that's when I decided to just create a network overall. Like, so because the first thing that came was the network, the Gifted Sounds Network. And from there, it was looking into, okay, how do you monetize podcasts? What do you do? And, the more I looked at it, it wasn't so much about a podcast show itself, but it was about what are the services does one need to, first conceptualize it, get it up and running, publish it, market it. What are the steps that I need? And it's like, when I look into it, it's more traditional of a studio where you have your production, you have a place to come and record, you have a place to store all your data and how to get things out there. So it's like, so I decided to just kind of just create it around that and kept it like audio focus, kept it podcast focus and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Because, the definition of a podcast kind of shifts ever
Yeah.
so slightly sometimes. So it's like, I felt it was a need to like kind of cover all those bases all together. And,
And you did that, man. You did that. And it's something that a lot of, when folks come in as podcast creatives, there's a lot of blind spots, right? About how to not only create from recording, to the equipment that you need, the software you need, the editing, but also that sustainability piece that, you know, you want to, I'm assuming that getting into podcasting is like getting into a relationship, right? Any relationship, you're expecting it to last, right? You're in
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
for something to come of it, right? And so it's so, you know, it's disheartening when you see folks get in it, you know, and with a clear vision on making their podcast last, but the blind spots on what it's going to take, right? Not only is it those services that are needed, such as audio production, audio engineering, that a lot of, and it's, you know, it's to our credit, but it's also something that that doesn't support us often, and that is the aspect of being DIY, right? We learn as we go. We edit. We learn the software. We do what we need to do. However, I'm from the school of thought that creatives should be able to create, you know, and not worry about the other stuff that is going to create hurdles for them to be able to create, and stay focused on that, right?
Mhm.
And so you being able to create this network where you have all of these services, it's just it's important because people need this idea that it's going to take more than just your mic and your RSS feed and you pushing, you know, push and
Yeah.
publish, right? It takes more than that.
Mhm.
So you understood that early on. I'm sure it has evolved in the 8 years that you've been in the game. What have you seen change in the game since you started?
Uh, the barrier to entry is lower now.
Mm,
Before you, I would say before things like Anchor, like those type of platforms, you were anyone who wanted to get into podcasting, you had to spend a minimum $100, and then you had monthly payments after that.
mm-hmm,
You know, so now it's you don't really need to do that anymore because now you can just pick up your phone, boom,
mm,
you got a podcast. You know, you're like, so it's like you're on there. I mean, that doesn't say much for you in the way of your quality of the
mm-hmm.
podcast. It that really doesn't matter because you're on there now. You started, and so I'm seeing way more saturation in that sense. Um, and which is good and bad for any
Mm-hmm.
industry. Um, but it's yeah, that's like the main thing I've seen. It's like the barrier to entry has been much lowered now. So
Mm-hmm.
because everybody is buying, you know, $1,000 phones, it's you know, I like to call them cameras because that's what you're
Yeah.
buying, camera. um,
Right.
you know, you now have the capabilities in this box is, you know, to just start,
Yeah.
and it depends on the type of phone that you have. There are tons of accessories you can buy now, especially if you have an iPhone.
Yeah.
If you have an iPhone or iPad, you can start actually a pretty high quality podcast, a high quality sounding podcast, because there's a bunch of different things out there that builds around this platform
Yeah.
to make the content now. So it's that much
No.
I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right about that. And I mean, we talk about the barriers being lowered, which is a great thing. I actually think podcasting, not having the gatekeepers involved, allows space for us to really, you know, foster what we want inside of this industry, because that's important. A lot of industries are already established, already got their barriers really, really, really high. Um, and they open the door just a little bit, like at the club, and then close it real quick, you know, when it's enough of us in. So being able to get into podcasting relatively easily, you know, quality aside, but being able to create and
Mm.
express our lived experience, to me is super important, right? And Queen and Jay, again, shout out to them for their contribution to the festival last year about the market is not saturated. And it's like it is, but not for us, right? There's still so much more room and space for us to come out of that less than 5% of the podcast, active podcasts in the market, you know, in the marketplace. There's still so much need for us to enter the industry, and not only enter it but stay, right? And what we always say is that there's an audience for everybody. You know, there's an audience for what's the name of the first podcast? Titty, the what is it?
Titty Talk. Titty Talk.
Titty Talk. There's an audience for Titty Talk, right? you know.
Yeah.
You know, just off the name alone, they'd be like, okay, I'm listening to that podcast, at least to find out what it is, right?
Yeah.
And so, and then, you know, you do it correctly and you engage correctly, people are going to stay and become your fans and your audience. And so it's so important for us to keep entering this industry, and again, not only entering but staying for as long as we can, because there's an entrepreneurial spirit and aspect to podcasting, you know. And this is what we want to see, is people liberated, you know, from the things that they think they have to do in order to make a living or in order to express their art or create, to the things they get to do and want to do, right? And so that's why I think it's so important for us to continue to do this, and obviously for networks like yourself, obviously festivals like Afros and Audio. You now have, I counted 21 podcasts in your network, you know, and starting with the first one. How did you grow? You know, what was your idea of scaling? Did you have an idea initially when you started that this is going to scale, and you'd reach this 21 podcast, or did it just happen?
You know, in the beginning it was just more of a love for creating content and telling stories. But I wanted to be a place where people can come and push out their content that way. So that's kind of like the idea that I had. And in a way also put in a stamp of, because one of the biggest things with GSN, or Gifted Sounds Network, is quality. So I knew these people who had great conversations about their lives, and they wanted to be heard. And they were black. They were black women, black queer women at that. And it's like, you know what? Because when you look at that field, like you said before, it's not saturated for us. It's not saturated for people of color. It's not saturated for people that we consider other, or whatever the case may be. So it's like, okay, I wanted to put a platform where they can just thrive. I don't have to be on a show. I don't need to be that type of person or anything like that. I just wanted to like create, like, okay,
You didn't be Diddy, you just wanted to be
exactly. I want to be the guy in the background.
right.
That's it, you know.
Yeah.
If you know, and the scaling came about when we saw the audience built around certain shows, and we were like, okay, this is dope, scary, and awesome. But you know, because it was kind of like, I never did this before, so it's like, it's kind of like trying to figure out where to go. And we decided that it's like, all right, let's reach out to more, because in some ways we reached out to people we knew, and then from there people would reach out to us to like either be on a network or help them start a podcast. You don't necessarily have to be on my network. Like, you know, that's one thing we make very clear. You don't got to be on it. I mean, there's some perks to being on my network or not. It's really up to, depending on whatever your vision is for your content. Yeah? So from there, it was kind of like, all right, maybe, you know, one thing I was seeing as well was another growth in the podcast industry was careers being formed around it. So if you go on LinkedIn or any of those job finding sites, just type in podcasts.
Yeah.
There are tons of jobs now. And this was happening 3, 4, 5 years ago. It still is now. Like it's bigger now than it ever been. So I was like, oh, okay, I see. So there's a hunger there outside of the people who wanted to do DIY. There are corporations getting involved. There's celebrities getting involved and stuff like that. And I was like, all right, let's see if we can get, you know, our folk onto the network, or at least help them create their content and push it out there. Or maybe we can push out something that we can help them create something. I think somebody just asked a question, what are the perks of being in it? Oh, so the best way I can answer that, so we provide, so the first thing you need to do with a podcast is you have to find a hosting. So you can either do that through your own website, or, you know, you find like a host that can do it for you. Either way, you have to pay money for that. So if you're on a network, that's not something you pay for. Like, it's something you would pay, like that's something you have unlimited bandwidth. because of the type of hosting that we have. There's no cap on how large your files can be, how long your episodes can be, or anything like that. It's pretty much unlimited. Versus, you know, you go on your own, you would have to try to find a host that would allow that sort of thing. Because, you know, the plans that we have are more network-based versus individual. And I'm not saying that you can't find, there are things out there. There are like things like, I think Acast has a pretty dope hosting thing going on. There's a few others out there that like Podbean and stuff like that can like do that for you, but it does come with its own restrictions, and it really depends on what your budget is and stuff like that. And there are ways around it to even be cheaper. They're like tricks of the trade.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the opportunities, right, in the network, is that you can go fast by yourself, or you can go further together, right? And so it's like this opportunity where you have people like yourself who's been in the game for some time, learn some tricks of the trades, have some strategies on making the podcast a success, and you know, and creating that opportunity for folks. So I definitely think that's one of the benefits myself. And speaking to that, there are a lot of things that even on your site, giftedsounds.com, right? And so the people, that podcast creatives who are just, you know, starting out, even if they're established, don't really have an understanding of, right? For instance, tagging the podcast, the metadata, the KPIs, you know, also, you know, that those things are very important, and a lot of people don't understand or know what these things mean and matter to the success of their podcast. So can you speak to that, to speak to those things? Because we always, in these lives, we want to not only talk about what we're doing for the community, but also teach a bit, you know, in a way that can support everyone moving forward. So just like on those two things, having clear objectives for your podcast, so important, that can be measured, as well as being able to tag your file, you know, making sure that metadata is on there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this also kind of, you know, goes into what Latrice was asking in the live here. As you know, I can phrase it in a way like, being in our network, we do handle a lot of the back end stuff. So that's, you know, distribution. That's one thing that we can help you get onto bigger platforms quicker. Whereas other single podcasts may take a little bit longer. Not to say you won't get on there, but that's one. There's like a list of things that we have, you know. But to overall, after you've created your name, your logo, you got your music. I should always say, keep your music original. If you know some independent artists, if you make music yourself, try making some beats. Buy some copyrighted free music. This will help you out in the long run, because you never know if your stuff blows up. Next thing you know, you're getting a little cease and desist. I've gotten a few of those in the past. Like, keep your stuff original. Like, coming out the gate, try to stay as original as possible. And you know, read up on those type of laws around, like, depending on what you're trying to do. And before you even publish your first episode, come up with your own, you know, try to get yourself a copyright. That's very important. Come up with a way to say, stamp that this is mine. So, you know, get yourself a metadata editor, which is something that, depending on your editor that you're using, so things like Audacity or Audition or whatever, there's free versions, there's paid stuff. Always look for your ID3 metadata. That way, that's stuff you put into your file. You bake that in. They say, this is mine. This is, you know, host Latrice, Latrice.com. You know, that's, you know, Afros and Audio Network. That, you know what I'm saying? Like, those are the things you put in there, because you bake that into the file, and it helps out. Because that helps with, once you put it online, it helps proliferate. It helps with the SEO for that file as well. So somebody might look up something, and then yours get a hit out of nowhere, you know? So those are things you want to do before you even get that file anywhere else. You know, when it comes to recording practices and stuff like that, that can vary. If you're by yourself, you know, it's a different kit. If you
Mm-hmm.
have people who are going to be there with you, that's a different kit. If you have people who are going to be network, that's a whole different kit too. They're all different kits. And you have to figure out what works best for you and in the budget. And then on top of that, the timing, your time commitment. Like you said before, it's like getting into a relationship, right? So it's like, how much of you are you willing to give to X? You know, think about that way before ahead of time. Like, think about the frequency of your show. Is it going to
Mm-hmm.
be monthly, weekly, daily? What are you doing? You know, how long is it going to be? How much of that time can you dedicate? Because some people got kids, and you know, you got other things you're doing in this world. So you gotta consider all that stuff. But once you get comfortable into that groove, then you start working. And I would say, do that for the first year, switch it up for the next one.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you just keep creating and pushing it out there, you know, that'll be important. I mean, but once you're done and you got your stuff and you're ready to go out there, make sure to tag your stuff well. Every episode should have some sort of tag in there, so that way it says it's easy to hit and find and search.
Mm-hmm.
And this will help you with your, whatever host that you're on. You want to make sure that you get download stats. Very important. The only reason why I say this is because if the individual now, the talent or the people or the team wants to say, you know what, I want to start making money off of this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's try to get some advertisers. That's the first thing they're going to ask you. What are your downloads? They don't care about the streams, because to them, advertisers, marketers, they think downloads are more tangible.
Mm-hmm.
It means somebody willfully goes and pull, okay, this is on my phone, my tablet, whatever, and whatnot. I mean, streams are nice and everything like that, but they definitely want to know who's listening. Do you have demographic breakdown? Where are you popular in the world and stuff like that? Those are the stats that they're going to be asking, because, and you want to make sure that whatever host you're on is giving you all that information. And don't get discouraged if you don't see a lot of downloads right out the gate, because nobody knows who you are. Unless you're a celebrity or you have a celebrity on your show, it's going to blow up fairly quickly, and that you can monetize pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
And through that, that means sponsorships and stuff like that. People will send you ad reads or, money or some sort of product or whatever the case may be. So there's kind of behind the scenes things you have to work with.
Yeah.
And
yeah. And it's for me, it's because, and this is why Afros and Audio exists. This is why Get the Sound Networks exists. Shout out to King Hayes, who was our IG Live, IG Live 2 weeks ago. And he also has his network, Breaks Media. And it really is about being able to be innovative, which we are, be, kind of unorthodox in the way in which we get things done, because the reality is that the reason why we are less than 5% in the marketplace is because of the support around what it is that we're doing, right? So the marketing budget isn't there, the access to information of this is how you get this done, the things that you're talking about right now, the things that are on your site about the ID3 tagging, the KPIs, having those clear objectives. That's oftentimes a missing component to us understanding what it is we're up against, what it is that we're doing, and how we're going to sustain what we create, right? It's so important. And so to be able to think outside the box and say, listen, whether we have that or not, just like we've done everything else in our life up until this point, we've got to be able to create a way to make it work just like as if we had the same level of support, backing, money, what have you. And so it takes us being, thinking outside, thinking outside the box. So that's a term, but you get what I'm saying. Even in advertising, when I push people in my network, or even people who consult, it's like, listen, you don't have to get the big name advertisements. Go to your local stores. Let them know what you're doing. Let them know what you've got going on. Let them know that we're going to talk to them about the skirt we bought out of here, or the jacket I bought out of here, or whatever. You know what I mean? $50, just like that, you're now starting to get your advertising budget. You're now starting to get things that you can flip back into and reinvest inside of the work. And so we have to, it is what it is. It has been what it is for so long that it's like we just simply get to create our lane, our way of doing this on our terms and in our way. And to be able to, again, the idea about podcasting is this is our own expression. This is that opportunity to do what you want to do. And so keeping it on your terms is actually something that I would prefer, really. I
Yeah.
don't want any, have to do it on anyone else's terms. So how do you guys stay autonomous in the work that you do? I'm sure that you're looking for sponsors and supporters and stuff like that. I'm not sure if you have a vision of getting bought by, any bigger companies or something like that. But what is your vision for Gift of Sounds, and how are you choosing to do this on your terms?
The ultimate far off vision is to create something. I'm not sure if people are familiar with Brick or public access.
Mm-hmm.
Where here in Brooklyn, there's a thing called Brick. They have a place where the community can go and create content. They give them access to a bunch of media tools and stuff like that. Like the farthest thing is to create a warehouse where we want to do the same for the community. But having a heavy focus on podcasting and media creation, and and in a way to like also provide resources for education around that to actually help people get jobs in that field. You don't have to stay with us. You can just it's a stepping stone. You got your start.
Yeah.
You can go work for NBC now.
Mm-hmm.
Because we gave you these skills, or so that's like one of the far off things that we want to do. And also if at all one of the other big goals is to see if we can create a platform, something similar to like SoundCloud, where the barrier to entry for creating podcasts, but it's like, would be even lower, and figure out a way to like bring, like, okay, you have a voice, you got something to say. Let's, in a way, I like to call it democratizing Black voices,
Mm-hmm.
and giving them the platform to say something,
Mm-hmm.
and making it a lot easier to get it out there. Because right now, like, podcasting isn't being regulated by any government agency out there. Everything is privately owned and runs that way. They have their own rules and regulations, but, as long as you adhere to those things, you'll be fine for the most part. Because as far as I've seen, one thing that we try to push, because you asked how we stay autonomous, is that we're funding this, out of our own pockets, and also grants and stuff like that. Like, we're taking advantage of those type of things that are available to us as a minority-owned business here in New York City. So, that's one way of doing it. And the other side is like, anyone who comes to us, regardless if they're trying to be on a network or not, or trying to come to something, we push very hard. We emphasize very deeply to them, this is your content. You own this. This is your baby. You sign a contract with us, in the contract it says, this is your responsibility. We're just here to help you get it out there.
Yeah.
That's it, So we try our best to let people know, this is your like I said, you own this. We are here to support you and give you the resources you need to achieve the goals that you're trying to achieve out there. And it really depends on how serious you want to get with this or not.
Word. And that's important, what you talked about, ownership, right? And owning your own content, owning yourself. Ownership of self is a big thing, and it's something that especially us as a people who have been policed and monitored and told what it's supposed to look like, just being. It's something that we all, it's 2020, free people. I like to say that a lot. It's 2020. We free people. We get to do whatever the hell we want to do. Ownership and self-ownership is very important, right? And so, and it's also important that, like, you speak these things out there and into existence. Like, Ann said earlier in the comments, is that there are other people who want to do similar, that are aligned with you, or there's a synergy there, right? But they're over here, you're over there. No one knows that you're over here thinking the same thing, and this opportunity to collaborate and pool resources and create that sense of reciprocity and integrity inside of the business, because we all have a common goal, is so important. It's so important. And so it's great that you have these ideas, and my hope is that eventually it's not like just y'all trying to figure out how to make that happen. There's someone else that has a component. This is what support looks like, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
that you can go further with someone who's already been there, already knows it, while you have another aspect that's it was within your wheelhouse, right? And so speaking of that, I know back in January, you and I, Mickey, Minister Jazz, were talking about, finding a space that we could create this work together, help, start, make sure that we are aligned with this audio engineering, this audio entertainment, and also creating a space for the festival, because that's always an issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so COVID is a gift and a curse, but at the same time, we were talking about it because we were saying, okay, you know what you guys want to do, we know what we want to do. How do we make it happen together?
Mm-hmm.
Important, so I really appreciated that. And of course, physical locations are so last year now,
Yeah.
literally and figuratively. So it's like, how has COVID even caused you guys to adjust how you do business?
So one thing that we did, we adjusted our service prices for sure.
Mm-hmm.
like everybody else, it's COVID pricing.
Yeah.
Um, uh, the other way is to provide support
Mm-hmm.
virtually as much as we can to the people who are already on our network, and pretty much anybody else who's like contacting us to work with us in one aspect or the other. So it's like, if it's us sending out a kit, like a podcast kit with mic,
Mm-hmm.
interface, headphone, the whole thing. If we could travel to them, we would go and even do that and set it up. Like, we would do that
Wow.
regardless of COVID or not.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been it's like trying to figure out, okay, how do we keep the shows going and, make it as good as possible. So it's like trying to come up with different techniques to do that. That make it as easy as possible for the talent. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing. So it's like, a lot of ways of doing that is people using Zoom for that.
Mm-hmm.
There are better ways to do it, but it takes more steps.
Yeah.
So it's like we give a bunch of options, and it's like, hey, this is step A. This is option A. You do this, you gotta send me these things. Boom, your audio would sound great. Or you do option B because you don't have that capability. We'll try to make it as best as we can.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of that. Coming up with ways to, because some of the shows that we have, they live stream video.
Mm-hmm.
So that was going to be another challenge. But luckily for me, I've been dealing with that sort of thing for a while now, where it's like I know how to get people online. Let's stream out. Boom, where you want to go,
Mm-hmm.
and make that as
Mm-hmm.
best as possible. But so that much, that's how we've been adjusting for the most part. Right now, like I said, we our physical space is being built out.
Mm-hmm.
We should be starting some interior decoration very, very soon.
So
And
awesome.
yeah, part of that, what we're doing is like adhering to like the social distancing stuff, like
Mm-hmm.
coming up with see what we can get in way of like, okay, anybody comes to our studio, we got an area you can wash your hands,
Mm-hmm.
and wherever you sit, there will be social distancing, so that if anybody's concerned and stuff like that, we would put those concerns to ease as best as we can. So it's like those are the kind of things that we're thinking of. It does put a bit more strain on the budget that we didn't think of, but
Mm-hmm.
nobody really talk about that,
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Latrice. So it's like, so it's like just trying to like that's what we're trying to figure out, how to work in that world, that where we're
Mm-hmm.
at now in this pandemic,
Yeah.
and trying to figure that out. And we do have plans in action that's happening. It just takes a little while. Everything's slower, as everybody knows.
Mm-hmm.
Construction
Mm-hmm.
is slower. Everything, equipment is slower. Costs twice as much now. But
Yeah.
long as long as we're putting out the content, people are coming back. And I think it's very important now, more than ever, for Black and brown people out there, for people, people in our community, to let their voices be heard, or their videos to be pushed out there, or
Mm-hmm.
get their blogs to go and stuff like that, because it is one of the greatest piece of communication tool out there, which is the internet. So it's like, use that to your advantage, and if you can, and you know how to connect with those certain people, you can make a lot of money off of it as well.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Facts.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely there's definitely opportunity to be had in podcasting, and it's going to be up to us to create it. It's going to be up to us to create um those opportunities, those possibilities, and to collaborate with one another as a community to really see how far we can go together with this. It's super important. And just like before COVID, right, where our lifestyles were so busy that being able to take our information, our entertainment in our ears or whatever with us as we commute, as we work out, as we do whatever. For me in that moment, I was thinking, wow, this is really an opportunity for podcasting, right? An opportunity, especially for us to get into it and, of course, stay in it. Because the world is changing. Our lifestyles are changing. We're moving so rapidly that being able to watch a video, being able to watch television is becoming lower and lower because we've got places to be, right? And
Right.
then COVID hit, and I was like, wait a minute, we got all the time in the world now. But but the opportunity still comes in is that everything is slowed and in most cases stopped when it comes to in-person filming and production, when it comes to the visual TV, movies, and stuff like that. So that brings another window of opportunity for
Mhm.
podcasting and audio. And so again, it's just up to us how we're going to seize this moment, this opportunity, and really make this stuff happen for us, for our community, and for the industry itself. Because most industries win when we're involved, right? When we're doing our thing, when we're at the height of our creativity,
Mhm.
really driving that culture. And so there's still very much opportunity for us here, and you guys are leading that in your own right. Obviously, we're working to do that as well. So again, I just commend you for that. We're all shaping and shape shifting with COVID, not even knowing when the end will be, if the end will. What again? Who knows what the hell is happening? Day
Yeah.
to day, things are different. We're changing our lives according to people who we don't even trust nor believe that they give two shits about us. But this is our life right now. We're living it accordingly, which is a challenge in and of itself. So to be able to maintain ourselves inside of whatever we're in is super important. And folks like you are needed, are so needed in the game. And so that's dope. That's dope. And I'm glad that you guys are able to have this physical location, adjust and adapt for that. And that's just mad cool, mad cool. So, so speaking of live streaming, right? And speaking of this visual component to podcasting, as it's changing, it used to be this conversation that was strict. If you have any visual component, it's not a podcast. It's not a podcast. It's not a podcast unless it's audio. That is changing. I saw on Spotify where they're talking about now, is this article that came out this week, that they're getting ready to start visual podcasting, video podcasting. Like, this is their
Mhm.
term. They're using it. They're going full speed ahead. And this is Spotify, a trusted brand. It's the way in which things are changing and shifting, right? And so we are August 12th, Afros and Audio with ACAST. It's funny you mentioned them earlier, our sponsor and partner for our virtual summer series. Latrice is going to be facilitating. Latrice has easily become one of my favorite people in the world, but she's going to be facilitating her own workshop around getting over that virtual stage fright, right? Being able to, as creatives, and this is some of our social upbringing and stuff like that, but wanting to hide behind our work versus
Mhm.
being in front of the work, being right there alongside, like, I did this is me, this is my creativity, and wanting to hide so much behind it, and now this is like the time where standing beside your work is so important, right? And showing yourself is so important, because this is you know, black people are different. We don't do shit just by, we're not going to trust just anything. I need
Right.
to see you. I need to know you. I need to trust that there's some integrity inside of this or I'm out. Right. And so what are your ideas around, because I know that's a big piece of your company, doing the YouTubes, doing the live streaming and that sort of thing. Why is it so important to you, in your opinion, that podcast creators are able to begin to show themselves online and just have a visual component to the work that they're creating?
Um, so first off, I would say I didn't know that Spotify was trying to get into the visual part of things,
Yeah.
which is interesting. But you know, I guess that's because Joe Rogan is on there now. So it's more, you know, in a way, going visual is kind of like a bit of another gatekeeping, because it costs money. Like it costs, I would say, believe it or not, a year ago, if you wanted to do a multi-camera switching type of deal, the minimum that you would spend is $1,000. Not gonna kid with you right there. The minimum you would spend is $1,000, and that's just to buy the switcher. That's not even buying the cameras.
Yeah.
The whole setup, right? So now this year, there are different tools now you can get that can make that very easy now. You know, I would say pro tip: check out the Blackmagic A10 Mini Pro. It's $600, and it does streaming from within itself. Because you see, the thing that people don't know about live streaming or even creating something like that is very heavily dependent on your CPU on your computer, the chip. Not the amount of RAM you got, not the amount of hard drive space you got. Don't matter. If you don't got that fast ass chip, you ain't streaming nowhere. So I would say to anyone who wants to get into that, who wants to put a visual component to that, there's like 3 ways you can do it. One, you just put your audio to like a still and throw it up on YouTube. There's really no things around that. 2, you can create what is called an audio reaction. But then again, you would need something a bit more powerful or an app to create that sort of thing, and even if you can create to that length of time. Or
what was
3,
it? Audio what?
Audio reaction. This is something,
Reaction.
if you look it up on YouTube, you'll see a bunch of different types of what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Or 3, you get the whole production thing going. And it's now, like I said, it's cheaper than ever now. You can probably even start off for like around $300 to get the what is called a capture card and get multiple cameras set up in a small space and just go. You know, so the barrier to entry to that is also getting cheaper. So, you know,
I have another solution for that too. That's just recording yourself while you're audio, with your phone.
And then you
ain't got nothing to do.
Throw it up, you know?
Right.
So there's like there are tricks to the trade, but it just really depends on how much work you want to do around that.
Right.
And and that's something we're preparing, in our studio for, because we have an audio only section and we have a video section, because we know. The video component of it, like I would say, a lot of celebrities are doing it. For instance, the biggest one, Joe Rogan. If you go to his website, you'll see there's a link for his audio and a link for the video, and it's the same thing. There's like he's doing. I mean, obviously he has the money and the fans and stuff like that to do something more up there, but it's not as creative as it is. It's actually pretty visually boring to look at. In my opinion, but there are ways that anybody now can do. I would say go on YouTube right now and look up live streaming on a budget. You will see hundreds of videos referencing one of the components I talked about and different things you can do. Follow people who live stream video games, because you can take the same techniques that they're using and add it to your podcast. Most gamers, they're cheap and they don't want to spend extra money. They will find tricks and ways to. There's a lot of free software, a lot of cheap hardware you can get to get some sort of visual out there. Even live streaming to Instagram is something I've been looking into for a while, and there are now platforms out there that let you do it from your computer instead of free Zoom account, like what Tracy's saying.
And that's go ahead.
Yeah, like I was saying, like, you know, that sort of thing. And it really depends on, I can't stress this enough. It's like, it depends on the type of quality that you want to use.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're serious about spending, having great audio quality, that's one thing when you step it into video, if your audio sucks, people will not forgive you for that. I'll let you know that right now.
Yeah, yeah,
You could have the best 4K stream that anybody can't hear you. Eh,
yeah, yeah.
it don't matter. You know, it's like you need to, like, I would say, so I don't know if you can see this, but this mic right here,
Yeah, yeah, I see it. Mm-hmm.
this is the standard in broadcasting. This is a Shure SMB7. It's a $400 mic, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you can save your ducats, get a few of those. Trust me, and get the interfaces and stuff like that. Your audio quality would go. But there are $100 mics you can get that can achieve the same thing. But it really depends on your skills in editing. But
Okay.
you know,
We got 2 minutes left, bro. So I'm going
yeah.
to because you know, IG they don't play with you. It's like you had your time, and now we
Yeah,
about
yeah.
to reclaim it. So I want to say this is a lot of good information. You know, everyone that's been listening so far, and we appreciate your feedback in real time. You tell people where they can find you. The website. Your services are there, your podcasts are there. Everything is really in that one space. Let them know how to connect with you on IG or your social media as well as your website.
Yeah, sure. So if you want to hit me up in a professional capacity, you can hit me up at lancejohn@giftedsounds.com, or you can just go onto the website giftedsounds.com. You can see everything that's there. Shameless plug. We are help create I guess the first annual Black Podcasting Awards. So if you wanna submit
Yes, yes,
your
yes.
show, you know,
Yes.
go ahead and do that. Blackpod.com, I think it's called. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah, Black Pod Awards, and we actually have a live with them, and you can see that in our IG live,
yeah,
our IG TV.
yeah.
And we're going to be doing another one with Georgie Ann next week. So
Great.
definitely look forward to that. Yeah, I appreciate you, man. This has been a great conversation. I wish we had longer, but thank you so much for coming on, and let's do it again. You
Yeah.
know, I'm looking forward to what you guys create, and please, everyone, check out Gifted Sounds. It's a